right, guys, so I hope y'all can hear me. I don't have my microphone today. Can't find it. Don't know what I did with it. So I'm gonna just have to work around that and do without it. But I wanted to talk to you guys about, I'm not really talking to everyone, right? I'm talking to those who feel like maybe they're feeling that gardening, maybe, you know, because things didn't go the way that they wanted them to go, or season, and, you know, maybe you had some plants die off. Maybe, you know, the heat was just overwhelming for you this summer, and you're like, man, like, nothing went according to plan, and maybe I should just call it quits. Maybe I should just give it up at this point, right? That's who I'm talking to right now, okay? And if you're not one of those people, then please help me to encourage those who are feeling a little overwhelmed by gardening. And, you know, because to be honest, like, YouTubers, if you watch YouTube gardening channels, they can make it seem like they got it all together, right? They can make it seem like they got it all together. In fact, I'm leaving the roots in here. Just pulled out this stalk stem, whatever you want to call it, right? I'm leaving everything else down here, the decayed plants, the dead, dying plants, the branches, just crumbling those up and leaving them right here in this bed. But listen, y'all, if you're who I'm talking to right now about wanting to give up or finding it overwhelming, trust me, you are not alone. You are not by yourself, because all of us at some point get a little frustrated with our garden and the way that it's going, because it's not doing what we wanted to do. But what you have to understand is, just like with anything in life, like when you first started your job, right? When you first went to school, when you first started your job, whatever, you didn't know what you were doing when you walked in the door, right? You had no idea what you were doing. But, or maybe you did. Maybe you had a clue. Maybe you knew a little bit, right? But then you got there and you found out that you didn't know as much as you thought you knew, or as much as you could know. So you set out to become a better employee, right? You wanted to become more knowledgeable about what it is that you did, right? It doesn't matter where you worked at. That applies to everybody. Whether you worked at McDonald's or you worked in an airport as an air traffic controller, you didn't know what you didn't know when you first started. But after a few years in, you had seen enough for you to be like, okay, I got this. Like, I've seen a lot of situations, I've seen a lot of circumstances, I've dealt with a lot of different people with different attitudes and different points of view, different opinions. And at the end of the day, you know, what you know is what you know, and you become really confident in that, right? And gardening is no different, y'all. Gardening is the same exact thing. Let me throw this straw right back on top until mulch set in, until we're ready to plant. Actually, I forgot my fertilizer and stuff, so I need to go ahead and put that in here too. Need to go grab that. I mean, y'all, like I was saying, y'all, like, nobody's got everything all figured out. The beautiful thing about gardening, though, y'all, is that it's art. It's art and it's science, and when you combine the two, you can have a beautiful outcome, right? Because if you can watch 13 different gardening channels, and everybody has a different way of doing things. Some people like using synthetic fertilizers, some people don't. Some people love to grow through the fall, some people don't. Some people love to grow in containers, some people don't. Some people love raised bed gardening, some people don't. You know, some people prefer this mulch over that mulch. They prefer this soil over that soil. Some people want to use compost, some people don't want to use compost. Some people don't want to use manures. It's a whole variety of techniques that you can use to grow, but look at the bottom line. If you look at all of their channels, do they all have success? Yes, they all have success, right? They all have basically nailed down their technique in gardening, and they enjoy gardening the way that they want to garden. So, and I'm telling you guys, like, if you feel overwhelmed, if you feel like this is just too much, maybe you need to just take a step back for a moment, gather yourself, and attack it again. But understand that, like, we all go through the same thing. We all suffer from the same setbacks. There's nothing new. We all have the same weed pressure or pest pressure, or, you know, too much heat, too much rain, too little heat, too little rain. Like, it's all the same. We all have the same problems. It's just what methods have we discovered to help us deal with those problems, to help us deal with those issues, right? So, for example, we're out here in the desert, but even though it's hot out here in the desert, this ain't the only place that gets hot. You know, it may get hot out there where you are. Texas gets, you know, those record-breaking heat waves just like we do, right? So what can you learn from desert growers and people in Texas about growing in your garden and protecting it from the heat? All right, every year you're supposed to do a little bit better. Every year, and it's not hard, right? You take what you've learned. Look, if you sit and you did a recap, and you did and you just sat down and you said, okay, what went well this year, what didn't go well this year, right? If you sat down and you thought about that, you would probably be surprised at some of the results some of the things that you come up with, because it's like, oh man, I ain't even consider this. Like, I just looked at this because we're human and we always like to focus on the negative more than the positive, right? So you may sit back and be like, oh, I thought my garden was worse off than what it was, but I did really well because this, and this happened, right? So for us, right, for 3 years I struggled with growing watermelon. Could not get a watermelon to grow, did not understand why. For 2 or 3 years, right? Then all of a sudden, boom, we got watermelon. Now I planted 13 melons this year. And out of the 13 melon plants that we, actually, let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. I take that back. I planted 24 melons this year. And out of all those melon plants, I only got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 melons. 6 of those out of those 24 plants, 6 of them grew melons. Out of those six melon, out of the 6 that grew melon, so far I have only eaten the sugar baby. 1 sugar baby melon. 1 sugar baby melon. Okay, so out of that 1 sugar baby melon that I was able to get, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed eating that melon. I enjoyed growing that melon, right? It wasn't what I wanted. I expected more. I planted that many melons because I was like, surely I gotta get, you know, quite a few melons. If I plant a lot, I gotta get a lot, right? It's about volume. It's math. You can't go wrong. Listen, man, I didn't go wrong. I didn't lose. I learned something, right? Every year is going to be different. Every year is not going to be the same. This year, we didn't have the same pest problem as I did last year. This year, my biggest problem was heat. And like I told y'all in the previous videos, I underestimated how hot it got because we weren't here last summer. We've been here the previous summers, but the previous summers, even though it's been hot, it wasn't like it was this year, right? And last year, we weren't here, so I didn't get to feel the heat. We heard the kids told us about it, but like I said, hearing about 115 degree heat and feeling 115 degree heat is two different things. Two different things. So what I'm telling you guys is, all in all, like, it happens to the best of us. It happens to the best of us. We make mistakes, mistakes that we shouldn't make. For example, and I'm not trying to throw, please understand, I ain't trying to throw anybody under the bus, but they make videos about it, so technically I'm not throwing anybody under the bus. But Roots and Refuge, you know, I'm like, they lost almost a whole growing season, at least in one part of their garden, because of contaminated or composted manure that wasn't fully broken down and composted, right? And you would think that somebody that's been in the game for that long would know about this and be able to avoid it, but we make mistakes. It happens, man. I've done it. I bought the composted manure I bought last year, messed up most of our melons, right? And I ain't been growing that long, but now, thanks to Homestead Heart, who had the same exact issue, had the same exact problem. They bought some black cow that was not fully composted, and it destroyed part of their garden. Okay, and the thing about that is, when that happens, man, like, it's like, what do you do? Because you got it now, it's in your soil. You got to basically pull up everything, right? Now, there's different ways that people can deal with it. I forgot how Roots and Refuge dealt with theirs, because they were saying they were going to try something that I think a friend of theirs told them to do, and something like that. I think that was them. But either way, you know, you lose not just that year, but you can potentially lose several years if that stuff gets into your beds, and you can no longer grow in those beds because of the contamination, right? And that can happen with, you know, the chemicals or the uncomposted manure or whatever. But I'm saying that to say things may not go your way. That's fine. That's fine. You take what you've learned from that year. Like I said, if you sit down and just be like, let me tally up, let me keep track, let me take inventory of what went well and what didn't go well. Then you can be like, okay, so I did this to the melons, I did this to the cabbage, to the tomatoes, and it worked or it didn't work. So let me retry next year, you know, either A, using the same method that worked, or B, trying something different to see if I get a different outcome. And watch what happens. And watch how effective, you know, you'll become as a gardener. Watch how much you grow as a gardener. Because this is about experimentation. That's the fun part, right? Don't just look at your losses and be like, oh, I failed. I suck at gardening. I don't have a green thumb. Nobody's born with a green thumb. Now, one thing I did do, I did come to understand, and I think this just ties into everything, not just gardening, into everything. You know, they do so they said, I don't know how true it is. I wasn't there when they conducted the research, so, you know, for right now, I just take it for face value that they did what they said they did, and they got the results they said they got, right? But they said they did, you know, those little things of research. They've done the research where they said, like, they played certain music around plants, and if they played the negative music, then the plants. Oh, girl, will you stop creeping up on me? This girl here, I didn't know what she was. I could barely see her because she was blending in with shadow. But they played the music, and certain music, when they play negative music around the plants wither and die. When they play happy music, joyful music around the plants, they grow lush and they grow strong. So I'm like, if you come out into your garden and you have an attitude, you have a bad temperament, a bad disposition, you're negative, and you're around your plants, could you be spreading that same negativity to those plants if what they say is true? Because more than one, you hear this from more than one source. You'll even hear people go as far as putting speakers throughout their garden and playing peaceful music so that their plants can hear it and grow according to the music that they're playing. So if that is true, now I don't care if you believe it or not, if it has some semblance of possibility, if it's possible, then you're coming out to your garden with negativity, with that mindset. Now you're spreading that same energy, because I do believe that energy is transferable, right? Energy is transferable. If you have negative energy, it can spread to people, it can spread to animals, it can spread to plants, any living organism. Because I do believe that we are all connected in some way. And you can call it what you want. That's not, the point ain't about what you call it. The point is that it exists. Because there's been times that I've been around people, and some of you probably experienced the same thing. I've been around people who have been extremely excited or happy about something, and that energy jumps onto me. And what I've learned in my life is that I am sensitive to other people's energies when it's that high. If a person is overwhelmingly happy or overwhelmingly sad, I will catch that, right? And it affects me and my energy, right? So I have to be careful of who I go around. So if you're taking that same energy into your garden, you can be transferring that same negative or positive energy into your garden. So we have to be careful about our temperament and our attitude and the way that we see things. Don't look at everything that's not growing as a negative, as a bad thing. Look at it as a lesson to learn. And I'll give you another example of that. I like to talk about the melons because that's what I've struggled with, like I said, over the last 2 or 3 years, right? I've had them in the ground, they didn't grow. I put them in another spot in the ground, didn't grow. Put them in the containers, and then I started getting melons. I don't understand it. I don't understand it. But in the same place where we had the melons at the second time in the ground, Keisha planted pumpkins this year, and we had a lot of pumpkins pop up because she tended to the ground more than what we did the year when we planted the melons. So we've learned over the years that it's not about fertilization, but it is about fertilization. Fertilization is normally what we talk about when we talk about adding stuff like this, right? Adding this and blood meal, bone meal, worm castings, compost tea. When we talk about fertilization, that's typically what we're talking about. But to be completely honest, if you have good, healthy soil and you treat your soil the right way, right? You give the microbes in your soil plenty of good organic matter to feast on and to multiply and all that good stuff. That too is fertilization. It's just in a different way, right? You're fertilizing your soil, really, right? You're feeding the microbes. Okay, so Keisha did that over there and in that plot, and she got better results with her pumpkins than I did with the watermelons. So what we have been learning over the last few years is that we need to definitely not necessarily fertilize in the traditional sense, but we need to make sure that we have the best quality soil that we could possibly make in our containers, in our garden beds, in our raised beds, in our rows, wherever we're growing at. That's where we need to have this stuff like as healthy, this soil as healthy as possible. And I'm telling y'all, I'm saying all that to say this, y'all. If you feel like your garden is overwhelming, if you feel like you're not getting the results that you want, don't give up. Nobody's born with a green thumb. Take the lessons that you learn, both positive and negative, make a list of those things and reattack it. Come back next year with a vengeance, or next growth season. Like what you learned about the spring garden this year. All right, so I hope y'all can hear me like I was saying. Hello. So, like I was saying, I forgot what I was saying. What was I saying? Shoot. Are you coming good here? I was saying take inventory of what you got, of how things went in your garden. I was saying, take inventory of how things went in your garden this year. I guarantee you can find more wins than, you're probably gonna find more wins than losses. And all you have to do is take the areas that you won in and do that again next year. Don't do like I did. Last year we had a lot of success and a lot of things, and I completely went left or right, or went this way. But just repeat what went well this year, next year. Don't do what didn't do good this year, okay? And we're gonna do a video about that, what we learned this year, and what are you doing? About to fall off the chair. About what we did good this year, and where we should have stayed, and where we can do better next year, right? Things that we're not gonna do next year. Like, and one of those things, for example, that I'm not gonna do next year is I prepped the soil for growing in the soil in some different spots, and in those spots, the stuff didn't grow. Like, it started off growing, but then it stopped, or it was growing and it didn't put out any, any fruit, any flowers, anything. So, got to do things differently next year. In those same areas, we're gonna have to amend the soil differently next year than we did this year in order to get the results that we're looking for. This cat here, you're laying awkwardly. There you go. All right. So anyway, guys. So like I was saying, if that's you, if you feel like you failed at gardening, that you don't have a green thumb, that you suck, that everything died, listen, it's not you, it's all of us. This is our first year getting peppers. We've been planting peppers for 3 years. First year actually getting, like, we've gotten peppers in the past, but nowhere near the amount, nowhere near the size of the peppers this year. So, and I just changed. Last year I grew them in grow bags. And what I did with the grow bags was, grow bags don't hold water very well. So inside the grow bag, I just created a berm of soil around the base of the plant so that when I water, the water doesn't rush out to the sides and go down the sides of the bag. It goes down first. So those are things that you learn. This year, I just put them in 5-gallon buckets. Y'all saw the itty bitty peppers. They were struggling. I didn't think they were gonna make it, but I planted them anyway. And now we have 20 something plants up there that are doing just fine, that are thriving, that have been putting out peppers all season, except for when it got hot. So like I said, if that's you, if you feel like you fall into one of those categories of people who think that you can't progress in your garden, you're not getting any better, trust me, you are. You just have to keep applying what you're learning. It doesn't mean going out and buying more stuff to become a better gardener. Like, you don't have to buy a bunch of amendments. You don't have to buy a bunch of tools. It's the swordsman, not the sword, right? So it's about just learning, what does your garden actually need, okay? You trying to give me a high five? What does your garden actually need? And just giving it to it, giving what your garden wants, giving it what it wants. That's it. All right, don't you dare. You saw that? This cat is getting beside herself. All right, come on. All right, y'all, so that's it. I'm gonna go ahead and knock this out. Got some other things to do. Go ahead and close out this video. It's been a pleasure talking to y'all. This cat is tripping. She likes me. She likes me a lot. However, she's not about to scratch me in my face. All right, but so anyway, y'all, appreciate you guys watching, and we will see y'all in the next video. Say bye. Bye.